Guys, buckle up because this video is going to be power ranking the top 25 players in CONCACAF. If you guys have been following Deadball TV, if you are subscribed, which you definitely should be, you would know that a couple months ago we reacted to an article that was doing a similar topic. I think it was maybe the top 7 CONCACAF players or the top 10, something like that. Anyways, the list was trash and we just eviscerated that. It was kind of fun to do so you can find that on the channel if you want to go back and look. Shout out to goal.com. I think that's who wrote it. Terrible article, but I thought I would put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, and create a better list, my own list, because I think it would be a bit cowardly if I criticized somebody else's work and told them it was bad, but then didn't publish my own opinion for a similar public criticism. So that's what I'm doing in this video today. This list took a while to put together, folks. This is 25 different individuals. I had to do a lot of number crunching, so if you guys could please drop a like in the video, that'd be much appreciated. And if you want to see the updated version, part 2 of this power rankings that I'll probably publish after the 2025 Gold Cup, as well as all the other CONCACAF content here on Deadball TV, make sure you are subscribed. Now, very quickly, the rules of engagement. Number 1, this is going to heavily skew towards recent performances. Legacy was factored into these rankings, but probably like 20% of the actual ranking. There are a lot of cases where I used legacy as the tiebreaker if I couldn't really separate between two individuals. Also, national team performance for me is very important, so that is also going to factor in. I'm not going to say 50% or 40%, but it was a substantial part of how I decided to organize this list. And just like legacy, sometimes national team was the tiebreaker if I couldn't decide between two players. Without further ado, let's kick it off at number 25. I have Folarin Balogun. Now, Balogun has barely played this season. He just recently returned from injury. I think he's got 9 appearances in Liga as of time of recording, which is early April. And I think Balogun is a solid striker, though he is not the second coming of Christ like many US fans were hoping for. Not only hoping for, but outright proclaiming, actually. We are now 2 seasons removed from Balogun's breakout campaign at Reims, and since then, he's really never been able to recapture that form for Monaco. Now, could he get back there? Absolutely. Even though Balogun's numbers don't really pop out at you through the screen, I do think when you watch him play, he does have a positive impact in all of these games. And so while right now I have him, well, I don't want to spoil how many strikers I have above him, but let's say he's a top 7 striker in CONCACAF, I definitely think he could get back to that top 3, top 4 race. He just needs to stay healthy and have a little bit better output. But honestly, I don't really think he deserves to be ranked much higher as of now. At number 24, I have Alexis Vega. And there's actually an argument for Alexis Vega, since this is a power ranking, for him to be higher on the list. Because my man's numbers for Toluca right now are ridiculous. 9 goals, 7 assists in 14 Liga MX games. I mean, those are numbers that are going to have you in Europe in no time. Well, maybe not, because this is Alexis Vega we're talking about. That guy's not going anywhere. Homie is staying put in Liga MX until he retires. So yeah, those numbers are insane. For Mexico, he's been okay recently, right? I think he was one of our better performers during the 2022 qualifying cycle, but it's 2025, homie. That doesn't really factor in that much now. He was okay in the Nations League, a Nations League in which Mexico won. So I do dock a few points for him not being exceptional or even really good for the national team, but he's been unplayable in Liga MX, and I think he deserves to be in the top 25. Moving on to number 23, we have Ricardo Pepi. I thought about this one a lot, right? Ricardo Pepi's played 18 games in the Eredivisie, and he's been out since January, but I think his performance and his output before the injury warrants him being in this list. He had 11 goals and 2 assists in the Eredivisie. I think 2 goals, 1 assist in the Champions League, including one against Liverpool. I think he's also one of the American strikers that actually shows up for the national team. There are others that are kind of ghosts every single time. I'm not saying Ricardo Pepi is a beast every time he puts on the stars and stripes, but the guy, despite not getting a ton of starts, despite having limited minutes, he does have an impact. And especially recently, he was good for the United States before he got injured. And I think in everybody's depth chart for the U.S. men's national team striker, he's 2, if not number 1. There are some people that have him above Balogun, and I think there's a very sound argument for that. That is not a howler take at all. So when Pepi comes back and he's healthy, could he go up in this list? Absolutely, because if I had recorded this in December, I guarantee you he wouldn't have been 23rd. He probably would have been 15, something like that. So we'll see. Moving on to 22, we have his U.S. men's national team teammate, Weston McKennie. Now, I've been watching Weston for years now, and to be honest with y'all, I still don't really know what he's really good at. He's good at a lot of things, but he's not elite at anything. Like, he's a solid midfielder who can defend at times, and he can pick out a dime pass. It just doesn't happen consistently. He's just not a great player, and he's never going to be. He's a solid Serie A midfielder. That's it. Now, for the national team, I think he has been ass cheeks recently. He was god-awful at the Copa America. He was terrible when the United States played against Colombia and Brazil leading into the tournament. And at the last Nations League, when the U.S. finished fourth, he was a ghost. He was terrible. So I am docking several points for that. Now, Weston's a weird one because there are two conflicting dialogues about him at the same time going on. For Juventus, you have half of the people that say, hey, even though Juventus, who have been very disappointing this season, even though they're not as good as they used to be, Weston has been their best player. And then you have the other side of fans who say, yes, he has been the best player, and that's why Juventus is—
How you doing?
Because if Weston McKennie is your best player, you're not going to finish in a Champions League spot in Italy. And I kind of lean more towards that second argument. I don't think Weston McKennie can be your best player. I think if he played for a different national team, he would get super exposed in some of these Nations League qualifying games. I think he benefits a lot from playing in the deepest and strongest team in the region. Like, again, I don't really know what else to say about Weston other than he's solid. Weston is a solid player, period. We can really just move on because I have nothing else to say. At number 21, we have Leon Bailey. I think Leon Bailey is simply crazy overrated. In fact, he is an argument to be the most overrated player in CONCACAF, and I think the only reason he's not is because he's not Mexican. And there is a particular Mexican who probably is the most overrated player in the region, but I think that comes mainly down to population size. If Jamaicans had as many people as the United States and Mexico, bro, Leon Bailey would be so gassed up, it'd be insane. This man had one good season, not even amazing, one good season at Aston Villa, and some of y'all were saying top 5 player in CONCACAF. It was absolutely embarrassing behavior. Now, this season, he has completely reverted back to normal. 3 goal involvements in the Premier League for a pretty good Aston Villa side. And you know what? That's about right. That's about who Leon Bailey is. He was never this ultra star boy who's going to carry his team to victory. He's a pretty passive player who just kind of ebbs and flows. For the Jamaican national team, he's really made no impact whatsoever. Has he improved the team? Sure. And you could say that he took Jamaica to their first ever Nations League semifinals. Fine. Granted. But at no point has he looked like an unplayable figure for Jamaica. And Jamaica are still down bad and they still suck. So yeah, I just really don't rate Leon Bailey. He's like the Jamaican Rafael Leao, except way less talented and way less consistent. And if you're less consistent than Rafael Leao, I don't know what to say. At number 20, we have a player that I have similar feelings towards, but not quite as harshly. Tim Weah. Now look, y'all, Tim Weah, he's an athletic dude who can dribble. That's pretty much Tim Weah in a sentence. His scoring numbers this season are up tremendously, but that's more because he was a terrible goal scorer in the past. He was also playing as a fullback, so I'll give him some credit for that. He's got 5 goals for Juve in the league. Like, let's all just calm down a little bit. The problem is he still cannot cross a ball to save his life. He's got a 12% success cross rate in Serie A, which is one of the worst of all eligible wingers with the same or similar minutes as him. Still doesn't really create too many chances. I will say on the positive for Tim Weah, number 1, it is probably his best club season ever. And number 2, in the recent CONCACAF Nations League, he was the best player for the United States. I know a lot of people were saying Diego Luna, but Diego Luna played 1 game, so no, the best player was Tim Weah. But it was also the worst ever performance at a Nations League semifinal. A historically bad and embarrassing performance for the U.S. as a collective, so I don't know how many points you want to give there. Like, if you were the best player when everybody else fell off a cliff, I mean, sure, you should be congratulated, but I think it needs to be taken into context. This season has been a good season for Tim Weah. I think him being ranked 20th here is fair, but yeah, I just kind of think he's an average player. At number 19, I have Coco Carrasquilla, a man who last season won the CONCACAF Player of the Season award, which I thought was much deserved. Now look, Carrasquilla, he's a midfielder who isn't even a cam. He doesn't have great stats because he's not supposed to have great stats, people. Although even that being said, he's got what, 5 GA in his last 10 games for club and country, including taking Panama to their first ever Nations League final. He scored in the semi, he scored in the final. I mean, it's ridiculous. Even for Pumas, who really have no goal scoring threat whatsoever, he's creating the chances, just nobody's putting in the back of the net. I think Carrasquilla is always going to be underrated because he played for the Dynamo, now he plays for Pumas, the most meme club in Liga MX, and he's Panamanian, and there's like 3 million Panamanians in the world. He's never gonna get the respect he deserves, but I will give it to him. I will give him his flowers. For the rest of y'all that still don't think he's good. It's embarrassing, but you can think what you want. Moving on to number 18, I have Edson Alvarez. Ooh, man. This has not been a good season for Edson. He was once widely regarded as the best CDM in CONCACAF, but my oh my has the conversation swung this season. At least for me and the other people who are actually paying attention and actually watching these players play. I may be a Mexico fan, but I'm not blind. Tyler Adams has overtaken Edson this season. And let's be honest, it was always a pretty close debate. And let's be even more honest, Adams isn't the only one, baby. There's another American who has leapfrogged Edson in the rankings, but we'll get to him later. Edson has been a poor player for a bad West Ham side. I'm not going to do the thing where fans say, well, it's not Edson's fault. West Ham are just bad. Nah, bro. Edson's playing his part in how terrible this team has been. Edson's speed, his decision-making, and his passing ability has been exposed in the Premier League, period. There's no other way to say it. I think the league is too fast for him. This West Ham team was asking him, and sometimes still does ask him, to do things that he simply can't do. And before people freak out and say, well, it's impossible to play the 6 for this West Ham side, no, it isn't. They were asking Declan Rice to do the exact same thing that Edson was asked to do. And guess what? Declan Rice was in the team of the season. And there actually were some people at some point who thought Edson was just as good as Declan Rice. You know who you are. But yeah, needless to say, that debate is dead and buried. If you look at the stats this season alone, Edson, he's pretty good at aerial duels. Everything else, not great. Gets a ton of cards, including several red cards this season. Duel percentage is bang average. Tackling percentage, he's in the bottom 25% among Premier League midfielders. There's just nothing elite to his game right now. I will say in the Nations League, he played very well as a center back against Canada in the semifinal, and then had a decent game as well against Panama in the final. But Edson, I think we've just found his ceiling as a player. I think if he left West Ham, you would see him return to a bit of his former glory, but I really think to see peak Edson, he's got to go to the Eredivisie or the Bundesliga or something where the pace of play is just a little bit slower. I simply do not think he's made for the Prem. Moving on to number 17, we have Josh Sargent. And this is a weird one for me because Josh Sargent cooks for Norwich. He's almost got 20 GA and just over 20 league starts in the championship this season, which is ridiculous. But I'll be honest, I don't watch the championship. I never will watch the championship. I don't particularly care, but I do respect that it is a tough league. And so if you're performing in the championship, you have to be a solid player. And I think Josh Sargent is a solid player. And there are several times throughout the year where I see a highlight or I see a stat or a compilation. I think, man, I think this guy deserves another chance with the national team. And then he gets the chance and is just ass cheeks. So maybe he's just one of these guys where he's a club footballer and he's never going to be that good for the U.S. men's national team. And you know what? That's fine. Because guess what? Club football is what pays the bills anyways. I think if Josh Sargent had a pick, should I be a beast for my club or beast for country, him and probably a lot of footballers would pick club. So I don't think Josh Sargent sucks. I don't want to clown on him like a lot of US fans do. I just don't think he's really him, if that makes sense. I hate saying that, but I don't think he's him. It's not even that he doesn't score for the US men's national team, because Pepe doesn't always score. Balogun doesn't always score, but he has literally zero impact on the game. I will say that even if Josh Sargent was an average striker for the national team, he would be top 15 in this list because he is that good for Norwich City. But that's not the reality, and hence I have him at 17. At number 16, I have Manfred Ugalde from Costa Rica. This dude is absolutely cooking the Russian Premier League. Almost 20 goals in all comps this season. He will probably finish as the striker in the team of the season in the Russian Prem, and he's still just 22 years old. Like, this is a guy, looking at those CONCACAF players of like, who's going to be a beast in 5 years? Manfred Ugalde has to be on your 5-man shortlist for that. I think 16 is probably as high as anybody could go for Ugalde because number one, it is the Russian Premier League. And number two, if you look at how he's played for Los Ticos, he doesn't really have any good moments. I think he scored the most flukish goal I've ever seen in my life against Argentina in a friendly. Outside of that, he hasn't really been firing, even like some of his teammates like Josimar Alcocer. He just doesn't have the goal output. He doesn't have the numbers, I'll say, for Costa Rica yet. So I think that plus playing in a league that can't even compete in Europe, I think 15 is probably the ultimate cap that somebody could go for Ugalde. So he's kind of my drop him on here and stash till later and let's see what happens. I think for Ugalde to go up, a couple things could happen. Number one, Russian clubs could start playing in Europe again. If he goes and plays in the Europa League, even the Conference League, Champions League, he starts getting goals in that competition, I think he could go up. If he leaves Russia, obviously, and goes back to, well, not go back to Twente, but if he goes back to the Belgian league, the Dutch league, something like that, or ideally like a Serie A or a Ligue 1 or a La Liga, I think that would be the next natural transition for him. Then of course, if he performs there, he's going to shoot up in the rankings. And lastly, if he starts balling out for Costa Rica. And even on top of that, if he can make Costa Rica do something at the next Gold Cup in 2025, because they're a fraudulent team when it comes to the Gold Cup. They're too good for how bad they are consistently in that tournament. If he could take them to like a semifinals or something, that would be massive. At number 15, I have Malik Tillman. Now, Tillman was actually having a pretty good season before the injury. Dare I say even great season. 7 goals, 1 assist in the league for PSV and the Eredivisie. And if you look at his stats, he's top 90% for damn near every single offensive category. Now, I don't watch the Eredivisie, but I did watch him in the Champions League, and he was pretty solid there as well, and I would say looks motivated, unlike for the U.S. men's national team, which is a massive L on the Malik Tillman power ranking grading scale, because for the national team, he doesn't really do anything. He actually looks terrible when he plays for the U.S., and he got injured, so kind of his cap was capped. That was a dumb way to say that. Now, I wonder where most people will have Tillman because I think 15 is spot on because even though he does have good numbers for PSV, you're supposed to have good numbers for PSV if you're the starting cam in the Eredivisie, right? Like if you play for an Ajax, Feyenoord, PSV, and you're a striker, winger, attacking midfielder, brother, you better have double-digit goal involvements in the season or you are a scrub. Like, I'm sorry. Now, if my man was playing for Go-Ahead Eagles and he finished with 15 goals, 6 assists, then put him in the team of the season as far as I'm concerned. And probably put him at number 10 in this list. But because it's for PSV and yeah, the other things I talked about, US form and the injuries, I think 15 is fair. But if Tillman comes back and he balls out, let's say he doubles his numbers from last season, let's say PSV do something in the Champions League, why not go up? At number 14, I have Ethan Pinnock. Now, I like Ethan Pinnock, I really do, but I feel like us as a CONCACAF community, we kind of anointed this man as the best defender in CONCACAF because honestly, we didn't really know who else to nominate, and we just saw, oh, wait a minute, this guy plays for Brentford and he's a starter, so I guess he's the best. And you know what? There were a couple years there where I think statistically and through the eye test, you could say Ethan Pinnock was the best defender. But that is not the case anymore. I should have specified earlier, best center back. And there was a time when being a game in, game out starter in the Prem was enough on its own to be the best CB in CONCACAF. But I think those times are gone. And I think Ethan Pinnock has taken a noticeable step back this season. I don't know if it's injuries, because it ain't age. My guy's 31. That's like prime years for a center back. But the only thing that he's really dominant in still is aerial duels. He's in the 86th percentile amongst all eligible Premier League center backs. Outside of that, man, he's been pretty average this season. He's an okay passer. He's an okay dribbler. He's not insanely athletic. He can jump pretty high, but he's not the quickest guy in the pool. So yeah, I feel like he's gone down in the rankings quite a bit. If I would have made this a year ago, he probably would have been a top 10 player, maybe even 8th, something like that. And it sounds like I'm insulting him by calling him a solid Premier League defender, but like, listen to what I'm saying. He's a solid Premier League defender, nothing more, nothing less. That's nothing to be ashamed of. That's nothing to be embarrassed about. He's a good player. I just don't think he's the best CB anymore. And at 13, I have another center back, Chris Richards. Now, Chris Richards is another kind of funky player for me. It's really tough sometimes to separate what his reputation is versus what I physically see. But what I've seen recently in the last probably 2 months, maybe even 3 months for Crystal Palace is he's been a very good defender. I think him and LaCroix, I mean, they got it going on right now. I guess I should shout out Mark Ahey as well. It's not like my man died or anything. Like, he's a stud. It's kind of interesting because if you look at his passing stats, they're pretty terrible. And I feel like what people always said about Chris Richards was he was a amazing distributing center back. But maybe that's just because Palace don't ask him to do that. It's much more LaCroix and the wing backs who are asked to kind of distribute from the back. But that's neither here nor there. I just thought it was kind of interesting. Is Chris Richards better than Ethan Pinnock right now? I do think he is. And I think if we're seeing the trend of both of these players continue over time, where Chris Richards, it's not like he's going like this, right? It's kind of like a very, very steady, rise for him. And Ethan Pinnock, the inverse, I'm very comfortable with Richards being above. I think things looked a little shaky there when Crystal Palace were taking L's for fun, but it looks like they've steadied the ship. And I think part of the reason they've steadied the ship is figuring out a formation and a personnel that works. And Chris Richards is part of that solution. And I don't really think he's put too many feet wrong recently. Now, for the United States, he's a bit of a weird guy for me. I think he's pretty solid for the United States, but not amazing, if that makes sense. Actually, now that I'm talking about this, if you want to have Ethan Pinnock above Chris Richards, I'm actually not going to fight you on that at all. Moving on to number 12, I have Moise Bombito. Yes, another center back. And another center back outside of the top 10, and I think that's important to note because as a region, I still don't think our center backs are really that good. Like, if you want to make a list like I did of the top 10 center backs, in the region. I mean, I think it's got to be the weakest of any other federation. Maybe Asia doesn't have the strongest CBs either, but that's neither here nor there. Now, if I wanted to be a stat merchant, I could tell you that he's the second best tackler amongst all the CONCACAF center backs in the league. He's got a 63% successful tackle percentage, and he's the best dribbler and the best passer statistically of that bunch as well. But mainly what I like about Bombito is he's been an absolute freak for Canada since he broke into the national team like just over a year ago. Guys, he was playing in MLS recently. I mean, like, the glow up for this man is ridiculous. Does that blind me a little bit when I put together the rankings? Maybe, but also every time I watch him, the dude has a pretty good game. I thought of the Copa America, he was so impressive. Even at the last Nations League against the United States in the third place game, he was very, very good. Against Mexico, it's not like he struggled, right? I mean, Mexico score a kind of lucky deflection goal and then an absolute banger, take a bow goal from Raul Jimenez. It wasn't like Bombito got exposed or anything like that. I think he's playing in Nice and he's playing very well. And think of like the jump in level that he's experienced recently, and the fact that he hasn't folded whatsoever speaks to his quality as a center back. And so yes, if you said, Jack, you're building a team, you're building a scratch team from 11, who are your center backs? And if you gave me the choice between Ethan Pinnock and Moise Bombito, I'm taking Bombito every day of the week. I mean, upside aside, how he's playing right now warrants a top CB in CONCACAF. Moving on to number 11, U.S. men's national team's Johnny Cardoso. Now, I think Johnny Cardoso is one of the feel-good stories for the U.S. men's national team pool this season. He has formed a midfield of himself, Lo Celso, and Isco at Real Betis that is probably a top 4, top 3 midfield in the league. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Everybody's looking at Anthony's arrival and saying that's why Real Betis are good. Don't get me wrong, he's had a big part to play, but so is Johnny Cardoso. In fact, I would say Johnny Cardoso's best games this season have come against the big 3 in Spain. And I guess, little plug, we do a show, Lengua de la Liga, where we recap Spanish football every single weekend. So yeah, I watch a lot of Spanish football. And I can tell you, in the big moments, Cardoso has probably been Betis' best player. Him or Isco. That's it. And Real Betis need to hang on to him at all costs. And the fact that Johnny Cardoso has broken into the U.S. men's national team midfielder conversation, I think isn't heralded enough. Because if you would have asked fans 2 years ago, number one, nobody really knew who Johnny Cardoso was unless you watched the Brazilian league. And number two, everybody thought it was going to be the MMA midfield for the next 10 years. And now everybody's looking at it and they're like, all right, how do we fit Cardoso in here? Because he's just kicking ass in Spain. He's missing the national team moments for me. He hasn't really gotten the opportunities. And when he's played, he's been very mid, no pun intended. So I think 11 is fair. Now at number 10, we're breaking into the top 10 here. I have Tyler Adams, who I guess is Cardoso's direct competitor for the starting CDM spot in the U.S. men's national team pool, although I think they really could play together, honestly. The comeback for Tyler Adams is so real. I already said it earlier, but I do think he surpassed Edson Alvarez this season, at least in my power rankings, and you could be mad if you want to. That's fine. I'm sure I've angered every single fan base already. But the dude has basically turned into a U.S. battleship destroyer, right? Like, he is just terrorizing the midfield. He's putting in crunching tackles every single game. He's basically Luke Kuechly if he was black. And if you guys don't watch the NFL, that reference made no sense. Look him up. He was a beast. Everything we loved about Tyler Adams has come to pass once again this season. The crunching tackles in the midfield, the most housery in the U.S. men's national team pool, winning every single duel, winning the duel, getting the ball, and then immediately passing that thing off. Like, the man has no desire to dribble, and that's okay. He knows his role. He's supposed to F things up, and he does it very, very well. For a Bournemouth side that is no doubt one of the feel-good stories in the Prem, a surprise of the Premier League this year. Now, was he great in the last Nations League? No, he wasn't great. I don't think he was terrible, especially next to Weston McKennie. But I think if we go back to a legacy thing for the U.S. men's national team, I do think he's always been a pretty good performer. And so for that, I do think he deserves to be above the likes of a Weston McKennie and a Johnny Cardoso, at least for now. Moving on to number 9, I have Alistair Johnston. Now, I have said this for 100 times on the channel. I do not know how to evaluate Celtic players properly because the Scottish League is cooked. That being said, though, my man is a stud. I don't care if you want to look at the Scottish League, the Champions League, or international football. Alistair Johnston performs in all 3 competitions. He was one of Canada's best players at the Copa America. He was probably one of their best players at the Nations League, even though they finished 3rd. He was a beast in the Champions League. Y'all, he was 91st percentile in dribbled past in the Champions League of all fullbacks. That's like NFL first team all-pro level right there. That's like Jalen Ramsey and AJ Abuye for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, again, if you know, you know. I really feel like the biggest thing for Alistair Alistair Johnston is 1, he's Canadian, 2, he plays in Scotland, and 3, my man needs to hire a PR firm so bad because he gets talked about less than goddamn Austin Trusty despite being twice the player that he is. It's going to be really hard for Johnston to move up in my rankings because I have him 9 for God's sake, right? Like, it's not like I'm going to put him top 5 unless he leaves Celtic and goes and plays somewhere else. But every time I watch him, and honestly, I'll admit this, I didn't know if I rated him in the beginning. You know, back when the whole John Herdman Canada gen started coming up, I didn't know if I rated him. But when I watch him, I just think, God damn, this dude's good. God, just a smart footballer, athletic, knows what to do. I think he's top 10. At number 8, I have Santi Jimenez. And if anybody watching thinks Santi is higher than number 8 in the power ranking CONCACAF players, you are a simp. You're not just drinking Kool-Aid, you're drinking straight out of the Kool-Aid man. Pause. I'll be very honest, y'all. He is here because of his form for Feyenoord and for what he did in the Champions League. Because if I was going off what he's done for AC Milan, it's not good. And it's not enough. I don't think he's been complete ass cheeks. But my man has 3 GA in 9 games since joining the Serie A side. And as of time of recording, his minutes are going down to Tammy Abraham, a guy who Milan fans thought was trash, and he was supposed to replace no problem. Now, just like I'm going to fight against anybody who says that Santi Jimenez is the best striker in CONCACAF, I'm also going to fight the people who say that he sucks and he has no future, because that's also not true. This Milan side is very, very bad, and Santi Jimenez is not the reason that they are bad, but he has not helped the situation as much as Milan fans would have liked and as much as I would have liked. I think when he got there, things looked pretty good. It looked like he was going to help them at least score more goals, which was their number 1 issue. Well, actually, the number 2 issue. The number 1 issue is the defense, but I'm not going to talk about that now. Yet outside of the first couple matches, the goals have dried up. So has Santi been a flop for AC Milan? I don't think he's been a flop. It's too early to say, but he hasn't been what many were hoping for. I think the thing that's most concerning for Santi Jimenez and something to watch moving forward is his finishing, because his finishing at Feyenoord was probably his deadliest attribute. If you gave the man an opportunity in the box, he was probably going to score. Yet his conversion rate since joining AC Milan has literally been cut in half. It was 20% at Feyenoord in the Eredivisie. It's now down to 10% through 9 games in Serie A. So he's absolutely got to get his head out of his ass and start scoring again. Otherwise, you're not moving up on this list, bro. I'm sorry. As much as it pains me to say that, 8 is where you belong, if not lower. Now that we have that out of the way, at number 7, I have Johan Vazquez. Johan Vazquez is having a very strong season for Genoa, and he continues to be a beast for the Mexican national team. Like, he has been Mexico's most consistent performer for the last 2.5 years, and I don't even think that's up for debate. I think the big 4 race for the best center back in CONCACAF, Chris Richards, Ethan Pinnock, Moise Bombito, and Johan Vazquez. I think Vazquez is not the best athlete of that bunch. The best athlete is no doubt Moise Bombito and probably Chris Richards second. But I think Vazquez is the smartest defender. If you look at defensive stats that I think are a little bit more intelligence-based, like interceptions, recoveries, things that have to do more with good positioning, Johan Vazquez is the best defender in that category, and it's not even close. He has been linked to a club like Juventus, and I think that is probably his top level. But I think if he went there and he cooked, could he break into a top 5 player in the region? I think so. Probably number 5. I'm not sure if he could go any higher than that, but I've been wrong before. I just think Vazquez is a limited athlete who is very good at being a center back. But I think if he went to a league like the Premier League, I think he would be exposed by the sheer pace of play and the athleticism. And again, how quick you have to make a decision is the exact same problems that have plagued Edson Alvarez. Because if you look at Mexican players, bro, we're not really super technical. Like, we're just not. And that's because the development of youth players has fallen off a goddamn cliff. So anytime you're put in a environment where you have to make split-second decisions and your technical ability is really what's going to help you prevail, we're always going to see Mexican players struggle until the development gets better. So I think Vazquez, at his age, bro, stay in Italy, go to one of the giants in Italy, and ball out, man. Until that happens, maybe I can move him up a couple more spots in this list, but I think 7 is fair for Johan. And actually, considering how he was talked about even 4 years ago, dude, what a glow up for Johan Vazquez. Because I don't think this is a guy that anybody saw becoming Mexico's arguably best player. Although, well, there's one more guy who might be stealing the crown for now, but let me not get ahead of myself. Moving on to number 6 in my list, I have Mason Greenwood. Now look, everybody hates this guy. I get it. I don't like him either. Me putting him here is not a way of me saying free Mason, all right? I'm just talking about purely football. And if we're talking purely football, the guy has been chefing for Marseille in France this season. 16 goals and 3 assists as a winger is really, really freaking good. I did a quick check and couldn't find anything, but I don't even think we've ever seen a winger under Roberto De Zerbi in his system have near that goal output. And we still got, 7 games left to play? Like, it's not unthinkable for him to be on 25 GA at the end of the season. Now, the big things missing for Mason Greenwood outside of a moral compass is European competition and international football. The international football looks like it's been fixed with his supposed commitment to the Reggae Boys, although he has yet to make his debut for the team. And I will say right now, and I'm so serious, if Mason Greenwood goes to Jamaica and he makes them a competent national team, that is the biggest achievement of his entire career so far. Because Jamaica are cursed. So if you can make those guys start reaching their potential, you are actually him. And for European football, obviously that will be fixed next season because Marseille are in a European spot in France. So really we just have to wait till next year. Getting a bit nerdy and quantitative here, I was looking at his stats versus Christian Pulisic, and Mason Greenwood actually has better stats than Pully on like 3 more touches per game. So if we're talking like NBA, right, if we're talking usage rate, you could say that Mason Greenwood has a slightly higher usage rate than Christian Pulisic, but his numbers are ridiculous. And I'm not saying this to like diminish Christian Pulisic in any way at all. I'm just saying that like Mason Greenwood, this team is leaning on him a lot to get goals, and he's doing that. Liga, let's not act like it's amazing, right? It's not incredible, but it is a top 6 league in Europe, so that needs to be respected. That performance needs to be respected. Because I fully acknowledge that Serie A is better than Liga. I'm not going to try to debate anybody on that for even 1 second. And lastly, some people will say that he doesn't have the legacy, right, or the longevity because he barely played for Manchester United because he was suspended, rightfully so. But I mean, again, going back to my love for La Liga, dude, he was a beast for Getafe last season too. So, and Getafe are, I mean, just not a very good offensive team. I'll just leave it at that. So I do think Greenwood deserves to be here. Breaking into our top 5 now, at number 5, I have Raul Jimenez. Now, Raul Jimenez is having a strong season for Fulham. Not a great season, but a strong season. What he's been great at is his performance for the Mexican national team, where he has single-handedly won 4 of the last 5 games for us, which is just insane to even say. Like in 2025, if you want to talk about the best international performers in the region, it is Raul Jimenez and Coco Carrasquilla, and that's really it. And really, Coco's down here, and Raul Jimenez is way up here. Like, it's insane. There was a massive debate between Santi Jimenez and Raul Jimenez that I feel like is still raging, although I personally feel like Raul has put that to bed. The only thing that Santi had better than Raul, numbers-wise, previously was conversion rate. And I already told you guys earlier, that has gone from 20% in the Eredivisie down to 10% in Serie A. Now, if you look at literally any other category, dribbling, passing, hold-up play, defensive work rate, goddamn body language, Raul Jimenez is better. And of course, for Mexico, it's not even a freaking discussion. Like, Santi, very minimal impact for Mexico. Raul Jimenez, God mode for Mexico. I don't think I need to say anything else. At number 4, I have Alphonso Davies. Now, Alphonso Davies is a great player. I like Fonzie a lot. He's technically and athletically, he is blessed more than most players could ever dream of, right? But here's the thing. He got injured and he's out for the rest of the season. And this was a season in which he only played 31 games, and his numbers, at least, are not that good. He had 3 goals and 3 assists in 31 games as a starting left back for Bayern Munich. Now, I do not think it was a bad season for Alphonso Davies. Let me just say that for the final time. I don't think he sucks. I think he's amazing. He's 4th in my list, for God's sake. But I don't think there's an argument for him to be top 3 this season, according to current power rankings. Even Bayern aside, if you look at Canada, I don't think he's been amazing lately. I think he's been good. And at times, I think he's been bad. Like against Mexico, I thought it was way too much hero ball from Alphonso Davies. I think he kind of disrupts how the team wants to flow naturally. So, yeah, I'm not going to have anybody putting him outside of the top 5. That's absolutely ridiculous. But people acting like he's cemented bona fide number 1. Again, I don't think you have a good argument other than, look, he plays at Bayern Munich. Cool. Yeah, he does play at Bayern Munich. I don't care. So what? I mean, I'm talking about him as an individual, right? Like, your club does not determine how good you are. I don't know how many times I have to say this to the audience. What's the other argument? Oh, I see this a lot. Oh, Jack, he's linked to Real Madrid. Really, bro? He's linked to Real Madrid. You know who else was linked to Real Madrid? Santi Jimenez. Are you going to tell me Santi Jimenez and Alphonso Davies are on the same level? Alphonso Davies is clear. So again, we're not going to use transfer rumors as a justification for where a player belongs on the list. That is absolutely asinine. Now, could Alphonso Davies come back from the injury, absolutely cook and break into the top 3, or maybe even become number 1? Absolutely. I'll say, guys, the top 5 especially, this is going to be really malleable, and I feel like it's going to move a lot because there's not a lot separating these guys. But based on how they're doing right now, I got Fonzie 4. And who I got 3 right above him is Jedi Robinson. Yes, he is better than Alphonso Davies right now. I'm sorry, Canadians. It's the truth. 10 assists for Fulham this season as a left back. I mean, it boggles the mind. And it's not like this guy is a Trent Alexander-Arnold assist merchant where he has to attack to impact the game. He is still a lockdown defender, arguably the best one-on-one defender in the Premier League. Now, let me ask you guys, folks, if you're the best one-on-one defender in the Premier League, in a league that is known and has the best athletes in the world, surely you have to be top 3 in CONCACAF, no? Like, if you're going to compare athleticism and pace of play from the Bundesliga to the Premier League is superior. And I think it is harder to be a defender in the Premier League than it is in the Bundesliga. You want to talk about the Bundesliga being more tactical, more strategic? That's fine. But when you are ISO'd on an island one-on-one out wide, which league is harder? It is the Premier League. Because even when I'm playing a side battling relegation like Wolves or like Brentford, who are down in the bottom half, I got to guard who? Matthias Cunha or Mbuemo? Are you serious? It's just a harder ask. And on top of that, Jedi Robinson has been a top 3 performer for the U.S. men's national team for the last 5 years. I've said this in many recaps. He's just solid to good every single time. He rarely has a bad game. Like, U.S. fans, comment down below how many bad games has Anthony Robinson had. I don't know how many caps he's had, 50, probably something like that. Maybe he's had 3 bad games. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, for me, he's absolutely cemented top 3. And honestly, if people want to say he's the best player in CONCACAF right now, I would put my hands up and I would say, sure. Honestly, my last 2 here, they're just subjective. The whole list is subjective, but I'm not going to get mad either way. Like I said, in part 2 and going forward, this list is going to change. And at number 2, I have his teammate, Christian Pulisic. He is the leader of the U.S. men's national team. He is the best player by far for AC Milan right now, and he's probably going to be the best American footballer of all time. 16 goals and assists in Serie A in 27 games, 4 goals, 1 assist in the Champions League for Milan. A Milan team that is booty cheeks. Like, I don't know where these guys would be without him. And I think it's a very telling thing, right? Santi versus Pulisic, and even versus Yunus Musa, who hell no, he's not getting anywhere near a top 25 list. When you're all on the same team and the team is struggling, who is still performing? Because I think that shows your level. Pulisic has been their best player. Santi is getting worse with every passing game. So how could you not have Pulisic in the top 2? The thing that I see against Pulisic is people still point to his Chelsea time, right? And they still say, well, he didn't start there. I mean, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he didn't start there and he wasn't good at Chelsea. But again, this is a power ranking. What have you done for me recently? The guy left years ago, bro. What are we still talking about? And for the national team, there are very few players on earth who can match the national team output that Christian Pulisic has for the United States. But I think the main point here is his form for AC Milan and how he's been carrying the team. And I'm not going to say he's like LeBron carrying with the old Cavaliers because, well, he took that team to a finals, right? And AC Milan got knocked out by a Feyenoord without any players. It's more like Gilbert Arenas with the Wizards. If you know, you know. Like, Pulley's doing his thing. He's getting his stats. He's having his impact, but the team just ain't very good. And that means at number 1, I do have Jonathan David as of time of recording. And the first stat I want to highlight, 15% shot conversion rate from non-penalty attempts. And I want to say this because he has a reputation as being a high volume, high misfiring striker. And he does miss a lot of chances. But he's got a 15% CVR, which is better than Raul Jimenez, and it's better than Santi Jimenez, and it's better than Balogun, and I didn't look at Ricardo Pepi. So maybe it's not as good as what Pepi was before he got hurt. But the point is, can we stop acting like this guy's trash in front of net? Like, yes, he misses chances. He also scores really good goals. I mean, look at his goal against the United States in the 3rd place Nations League game. It's a banger. You're just going to have to accept with Jonathan David that maybe the one thing keeping him from that world-class thing is the fact that he can't consistently be clinical. If you want to say he's world-class, fine. I think he's got plenty of argument for that, namely the fact that he's been a stud top striker in France for like 5 years now, man. Like, how many more years do we need to see before we just start putting respect on this guy? And for me personally, it's not just the France numbers and the output, because he's been doing that. It's the fact that he was so good in the Champions League this season, 6 goals and 2 assists. That's what bumps him ahead of Christian Pulisic for me. And yes, I know two of those goals were penalties. I don't care. You want another data point to put him above Pulisic? Jonathan David is probably one of the only players in the world who can go band for band when it comes to to national team stats as Christian Pulisic, because for Canada, he's an absolute freak. Now, is Jonathan David destined to be #1 in the power rankings forever? No, of course not. He could drop as low as 3 the next time I decide to make an updated version of this video. Maybe Christian Pulisic could overtake him if Milan get back to form. Maybe it would be Raul Jimenez if he continues to just be Superman for Mexico and picks it up a little bit for Fulham. Maybe it's Alphonso Davies, his teammate, when he returns from injury. Like, this is a living, breathing list, guys. It's going to change. But as of now, I don't think there's an argument for somebody to be ranked higher than Jonathan David. Well, let me say, I don't think there's an amazing argument for somebody to be ranked higher. I think if you look at Jedi, Pulley, and Jonathan David, all those guys, man, you could put them #1 right now. And I'm not going to be mad at anybody. I'm just picking Jonathan David narrowly because I think he matches Pulisic when it comes to national team. I think he's better than Jedi when it comes to longevity. And I think he's got the current stats and the recent performances to match those gentlemen as well. So for that reason, I'm going Jonathan David #1 in my first ever edition of CONCACAF Player Power Rankings. And that is the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. I certainly enjoyed putting it together. I'm sure there will be many issues you guys have with my list. So let me know down below in the comments. Maybe you'll be able to change my mind. Who knows? I like to think I'm open-minded. If you make a good argument for somebody who maybe wasn't even included in the list altogether, or somebody you think is way too high or way too low, let me know in the comments. I read every single one, so we can chat about it more down there. Maybe I'll even do a response video to this, depending on what you guys think. Maybe I'll do it live. I think that's the plan. I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll see. Maybe this video gets 5 views and I don't end up doing that. But if you want to know for sure, make sure you subscribe, drop a like on the video, follow us on social media, links in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one.